It's the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast with your hosts, the Wolf and Action Jackson, who are keeping rock alive by talking classic rock, hard rock, progressive rock, heavy metal, 80s music, early MTV, UK vs. US chart success, and much more. This is the home of classic album and live concert reviews and your place for interviews with artists and legends. You're rocking with the Wolf. Hey out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to the 163rd episode of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast. Brought to you by me, your host, Mac B. the Wolf, and I will be joined par usual by my partner in crime, Gary Action Jackson from the East Coast of the United States of America. And thank you so much for tuning in to our review of Van Halen's 1984 as it turned 40, released on January 9th, 1984. It was really big for us growing up. Kind of established Van Halen in our minds and hearts as an amazing hard rock band. Hard to believe it's been 40 years, but we've got great response to it. Lots of download streams and interaction on social media. So we thank you for that. And if you haven't checked it out yet, please do. And we do have about 6 Van Halen episodes for you to check out. So check them all out if you're a Van Halen fan. Now this week we are talking about an album that is also turning 40 here very shortly. And it's got songs that were familiar to you if you were around back then. Some top 40 and top 10 kind of songs on there. But it wasn't an album that Jackson and I were super familiar with. And it was actually Jackson who suggested we take this one on as it's having a 40th anniversary. So I said, all right, well, let me take a look at it. And after listening to it the first time, I'm like, wow. Great record. Can't wait to talk about this. I'm talking about Learning to Crawl from the Pretenders. Now, everyone knows the Pretenders are fronted by Chrissie Hynde, guitar player, lead singer, and songwriter. She basically writes all the songs the Pretenders always has. But this album came at a very interesting time for the band. They made a couple of records, Pretenders and Pretenders 2, that had done pretty well both in the UK and the US. But things were starting to fall off in Pretenders' world starting in about 1982. First of all, guitarist Jimmy Scott, or James Honeyman-Scott, died of a drug overdose. Then Chrissie had to let bassist Pete Farndon go because his drug use was a problem. They couldn't maintain his spot in the band. And then she and drummer Martin Chambers recruited a couple of people to help make a single, which was Back on the Chain Gang, which became a big hit, and was back with My City Is Gone. Then Chrissie had to take a break because her relationship with Rock and Roll Hall of Famer and Kinks frontman Ray Davies had taken a turn, and she was pregnant with her daughter, Natalie Rae Hynde. So she took a little time off to have the child and to break up with Ray and to work on trying to keep her band together. Then in 1983, Pete Farndon died of a drug overdose, which I guess they saw coming. Meanwhile, she's trying to keep the Pretenders on track and wrote some of the best songs of her life, which you're going to hear about on this show. Plus now she's a single mom for the most part, and that's why the album is called Learning to Crawl, because Natalie Rae was learning to crawl around that time. Not to mention, here the Pretenders are with a couple of new folks in their band trying to figure out how to navigate this all over again. So crazy time. And yet, they make an album with several hit singles that went platinum in the US and gold in the UK. And Back in the Chain Gang was a great big song for them. Show Me was a hit in America. Middle of the Road is a rockin' tune. My City Was Gone was a hit in America, especially in the Midwest. And they had a Christmas song on there, 2,000 Miles. We're going to talk a little bit about the dichotomy of how well they did in the US versus how well they did in the UK, which was really their home country. Chrissie may be an American, but she had befriended the folks in the Sex Pistols and the Clash and was totally into that whole punk scene in the late 70s before she finally got her own band together and then took off to superstardom. Now first, just a little bit of business. We always love to mention that we're proud members of the Pantheon Podcast family, a network of about 100 different music shows. There really is something in there for everyone. You can check them out at pantheonpodcast.com or follow at PantheonPods. And we give a shout out now to our groovy sponsor, rarevinyl.com, who's based in the UK, but ships all around the world, has over 250,000 items in stock, including lots of Pretenders items. And they've got first edition stuff, they've got import stuff, CDs, LPs. I saw a Pretenders tour program in there from the early 80s that looked really cool. Wherever you are in the world, you can go to rarevinyl.com and use the code UGLY, UGLY, and save 10% off your entire order. So it's a one-time code. You don't want to just use it for a $7 single. You want to buy a few things, a lot of things, or something rare and hard to find, and then use the code to save yourself a big fat 10% instead of a little tiny 10%. They've got a great team. They've been doing this for 40 years, and they're big help to our show. So if you want to help our show and help your record collection, go to rarevinyl.com and use the code UGLY to save yourself 10%. Now back to Learning to Crawl. I was embarrassed that I didn't know this album as well as I should have. I did know a lot of the songs from the radio. About half the album I had heard before just from listening to the radio over the last 40 years. But to hear them all together, to hear some of the B-sides, and just to hear the story of how this all evolved was amazing. And Chrissie Hynde is such a badass. She's so cool. Her voice is amazing. And she's fearless. She's steadfast, she's tough, and she stands true to her convictions. And I think it all comes out in the album. So why don't we go ahead and jump in? We're going track by track on the Pretenders' Learning to Crawl as it turns 40 here on The Wolf. Well, I guess we're back on the chain gang here, Jackson.
Yep. Seems like it's been a while, though. It's only been like 2 weeks? It seems like it's been a month.
2.5. I mean, it's, plus we've had Christmas in there. We had New Year's in there. We've had family nonsense in there, And so it feels like it's been longer than it has been.
It really has.
But I mean, it's like I felt like we earned the reward. It was like we stayed on top of it all year. We were ahead of it all year. We went ahead and got ahead of it before Christmas, got all the end of the year and the first 2 beginning of the year shows all done. I'm like, this is great. Okay, we've earned a break. We can do some other things. Maybe we can listen to some music for fun instead of just for research. And I did, and I've got some ideas for coming shows and coming years and all that kind of stuff. But
well, good.
But today, we're going to do an album that you pointed out to me that we should probably take a look at. And boy, am I glad that you did.
I'm glad we did also, because I have to throw myself on the mercy of the court here. We're talking today about the Pretenders' Learning to Crawl.
Yep.
And I was looking through the list of 1984 albums, just trying to get the anniversary dates up, and it jumped out to me, and I looked at the track listing and I said, okay, well, we know a couple of these songs on here. These were radio hits. Mm-hmm. This is a really good album. This is a really good album that I hadn't listened to all the way through. And Chrissie Hynde is, I always knew she was cool. I always knew she was a badass. Right. I didn't know how cool and how much of a badass she really was till I went back and read her biography, in early years, moving from Akron, Ohio to London, and then getting in with that kind of the punk music scene.
Crew. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great story, and she is incredibly talented.
Yeah, and she was part of she was at Kent State during the Kent State massacre, and one of her girlfriend's boyfriends got killed, and I think she moved to Paris first.
Okay.
And then back, and then eventually moved to Paris and then to London and all that. But yeah, she's a tough girl. And I always knew that she had an amazing voice. And, she has the dark makeup and the hair, the bangs or the fringe, as they call it in England, down in her face there. So you can't really see her eyes. And then they're all black anyway. Mm-hmm. And she's always in pants, usually leather, to show that she's like a rocker chick. I'm like, oh, it's because she's not really that cute, right? Or she doesn't have very nice legs. Like, nope, that's not it. It's just that she wants to be taken seriously, and a girl in a mini, up there, your Dale Bozio from Missy Persons or something. I feel like even when she came out, and even in the early 80s, a woman fronting a rock band, and not an all-girl band like the Go-Go's or something like that. A woman fronting a rock band it was a novelty to a lot of people. It was almost like, okay, this is something we can promote because it's a novelty. And she's like, I don't want to be a novelty. I want you to take me seriously.
And even a band, I'm thinking of the same time period, even a band like Heart that had been around for a while. They had hits, but once the 80s hit, or the mid 80s here, now we're playing up the sex angle, the sexiness angle, and she never did that. She was always, I could punch you through the heart and not even think twice about it. That was Chrissie Hynde's look.
Not to mention, I can write a lot better songs than you can.
Well, that's true.
I mean, it doesn't have to be vacation. It's real hard, cool rock and roll songs. And so, I mean, we both knew Pretenders. From being kids. We knew Brass in Pocket. It was on the radio a lot. Talk of the Town, which we'll kind of get to in a little bit. And then these songs on here, I mean, some of them were hits at the time. Some of them were more radio hits that evolved over the years. And, of course, it's got the Christmas song on here that I like so much. But considering what she and the band had gone through in the years building up to this, not only is it amazing that this album is so great, it's amazing that it got made, period, as far as I'm concerned. Seriously.
And I think that was one of the things that attracted me to it also, was the story behind it. And, you have a 4-piece band and 2 of them are gone.
Yeah.
That's tough.
That's real tough, man. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, what we like to do is we talk about our relationship with the band prior to this album, and then we talk about what the band was up to, like what was going on in that world leading up to the creation of this album. And, they came out in 79, kind of the height of the punk movement. Chrissie had gotten this band together, and some people wanted to be in her to be in a girls band or just be a solo act or something like that. She's like, no, I want to be in a real rock band. I write the songs. But anyway, the Pretenders, the first album comes out, has Brass in Pocket, does pretty well. They make Pretenders 2 in 81, but they also make this EP that had talk on the town about it, which is about her relationship with Ray Davies.
Yeah.
Because Ray is a little older than her. I mean, she grew up a Kinks fan. She grew up really liking Ray Davies. She's not that much younger than he is. He's maybe 10 years older. He may not be. I didn't look at it for this thing. You would have thought she was younger given the kind of band she was in. You would have thought that if her first album came out in 79, well, that makes she's 20, she's 22, something like that. No, she was like 28 or something like that. She's a grown woman who's done a lot of stuff. But yeah, she had a thing with him for a long time. And that whole "You've Changed," I think, is about Ray.
I think there's a couple things about Ray on this record, but yeah.
But so then things kind of start to go off the rails a little bit here for the Pretenders, because Jimmy Scott, or I think it's James Honeyman-Scott. James Honeyman-Scott's his full name, but they called him Jimmy. He ODs in, was it July of 82 or August of 82?
Okay, yeah.
Chrissie gets pregnant with Ray's daughter, Natalie Rae Hynde, and she's named Hynde. She's not named Davies, because Davies, I don't think, really wanted to have the kid with her. They basically broke up during the time.
Yeah.
So Chrissie's pregnant. She can't be touring all over the world anymore, so they have to take a break. During that break, Pete Farndon ODs. You're right. So that's half the band. You watch the Brass in Pocket video or any of those videos that they did, half of those guys are gone now. So yeah, so she has Natalie Rae, who is, by the way, hotter than Ray and Chrissie put together, and she's a model, so I guess I'm allowed to say that. But anyway, so then they have to come back after that. So it's like, okay, you're in a relationship with this rock god type. It goes well for a while. He helps you write some songs. You live with him, which has got to beat living in a council flat with 3 or 4 other scummy musicians, right? So he lives pretty well. They start to build this reputation, and then it basically all falls apart. Plus, she gets pregnant, has a kid, which for a lot of female rockers, that's it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I'm a mom now. I can't do it anymore. But instead, they come back in early 84 with a new band. I mean, Chrissie always wrote all the songs. So she's still writing the songs, but now she has a lot to write about, it would seem. And she makes the best album of her life.
I think you're right. Yeah, and I think that was the other thing that really drew me to this also, was the fact that this is called the Pretenders, but let's not be silly about this. She's the band. She writes all the music. It's all stuff that it sounds like comes from her experiences in life. So there's a lot going on, and I don't think there's no tracks on here that I don't like.
Well, I'm with you there. Yeah, no doubt. And if you go to into their websites or social media, it's a picture of Chrissie. Okay. Right. I mean, it should be Chrissie and the Pretenders, and maybe it is. I'm not really sure right now. But yeah, I mean, in 83 or 82, Jimmy Scott dies, and they kick Pete Farndon out because of his drug problems. And then within a year, he dies too. Plus now Chrissie's a mom. Plus now she's dating Jim Kerr, lead singer of the Simple Minds.
Yeah, who's blowing up at this time also.
Yes, exactly. Whose career is really starting to take off big. So tons of stuff going on in this world that could easily derail. I mean, she could have had their kid gone back to Akron, been with her folks or whatever, said, help me raise my baby. And, the few royalties that I still get off those couple albums, because I think they put out the Live in Santa Monica album to buy a little time, right? Because it's like, okay, well, we had these 2 albums that did fine, had an EP that had a hit song on it, but now we're not sure what's going to happen with this band. And back in the day, I mean, 3 years or 2.5 years between albums was an eternity. Yeah, for a band that young, Led Zeppelin could do it, the Eagles could do it because they've sold 100 million albums. But if you're just getting started and it's like, okay, you haven't made anything in 2.5 years? And you got a chick, leader of your band? I don't know about the future of this band, but Chrissie made it happen.
And I think, too, from what I was reading, she was really good friends with Pete Farndon and Jimmy Scott. Mm-hmm. More than just bandmates. I think they were, they started the thing together. So I think both of those deaths hit her really hard, especially, one of them dies and then you say to the other one, hey, we got to let you go because you're not up to the challenge anymore. And then he goes ahead and ODs. That had to be just an absolute tough time. Plus, like you said, she's not with Ray anymore. She's got the kid. There's a lot of stuff going on. She could have easily just said, you know what? I'm done. I'm out. I'm going back home. See ya.
Yeah, but instead, they get together with Chris Thomas, a producer, who's worked with all sorts of people, big-time people, the Beatles, Pink Floyd, Roxy Music, to name a few, right? Elton John, Paul McCartney,
Maybe
Pete Townsend.
These people before.
Yeah, and he produced albums for the Sex Pistols and INXS, and so got with him and said, all right, let's go ahead and do this. They did it at AIR in London. And I mean, it took a long time, mid 82 to late 83. That's a long time, but hey, it's because she's taking a break to have a kid. And I don't know if she went back to Ohio to have Natalie Rae or she had her in London. I'm not sure, but I do know she went back to Ohio because of a song on this album.
Yeah, so I've heard.
Yes, exactly. So,
which is not the name of the song, by the way, people.
Right. Get that in your heads. But, I mean, if you look at the singles, the first single, Back on the Chain Gang, which we all know, and Backed with My City Was Gone, which we also in America know very well, because you're talking about going back to Ohio. People in England are like, where the hell's Ohio? I don't even give a shit. But it's, I'm like, what am I, 80 miles, 90 miles from the Ohio border or something like that. Well, not even that far, just from like Cincinnati, that's how far I am. That's something that's been on rotation with stations in my life for a long, long time. But that was the first single release, and that was September of 82, right? And then the Christmas song, 2,000 Miles, released in November 83 in the UK, whereas Middle of the Road was released November of 83 in the US. And Middle of the Road then came out in the UK in like February of 84. So some stretches between the first and second singles and a couple things that got released before the album ever came out.
Yeah, which is interesting too, because when it would hit the shelves, you would say to yourself, well, I've heard half of this already just from listening to the radio.
Right. It's great too. It's great. But like Martin Chambers, who was the drummer, the original drummer for the Pretenders, he recruited a couple people to come in to fill in so they could make those songs, so they could make Back on the Chain Gang and My City Was Gone, including Tony Butler from Big Country and Billy Bremer from Rockpile. But then eventually it's like, okay, hey, great, thank you guys. And they're in the videos or whatever. But it's like, okay, eventually we've got to get our own lineup together. We got to have new pretenders. You guys are pretending to be pretenders. We got to have real pretenders, I guess, is the way it was. And eventually it was Robbie McIntosh on guitar and Malcolm Foster on bass. So they finally got the lineup set and they said, all right, well, what do you got, Chrissie? And she had the goods.
What do you got? Well, kind of this. And then boom, here we go.
Yeah. Now, the album went to number 5 in the US on Billboard and number 11 in the UK charts. That's damn good, and it went platinum in the US, gold in the UK, which is kind of interesting. I mean, I consider them, I know Chrissie's American, but I consider the Pretenders to be an English band. I mean, everyone else is English besides Chrissie.
Yeah. And I didn't really realize that either. I always knew that she was an American, but yeah, I did consider them English because everybody else was English and it was done there.
Yes, exactly. You see the videos, especially some of the videos. Well, we'll get into Chain Gang here. It's almost on there, but that's obviously done in London, So they're a British band, kind of like Dio, I guess, in a way, right? Ronnie's English. I mean, Ronnie's American, but he had Vivian Campbell, and he had, anyway.
And they did I think Ronnie did some of those videos in London too.
In London too, that's right, yeah. But I mean, that's how I knew the Pretenders was from their hits. Didn't see them on MTV too much.
Right.
But you heard her all over the radio, and you would see, and I feel like they would do Brass in Pocket more. They would do more recent things. Like I've seen that video, but like Talk of the Town, which was done on a stage and filmed for the video, and had this cool effects on the walls and the steps and stuff. I didn't see that till we did research for this.
And even back on the Chain Gang, I remember it. Like I remember seeing it, but I don't remember it in heavy rotation either. Like back in the day.
I'm with you there. Yeah.
Hi, this is Gary Kemp.
And this is Guy Pratt. And you're listening to
The Ugly American Werewolf in London
podcast.
All right, well, let's jump in because these are great. There's some great songs on here. First up, Middle of the Road. Yeah. Always love this one. How about you?
Same thing. The drum beats at the beginning of this, they're off just a little bit. They go right into this thing, and then her doing the vocals, the woo 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 woo. That was horrible. I apologize, but that's the riff too. Like that's part of the lead into this. I mean, it's just a good straight ahead rockin' tune.
Middle of the road, he's trying to find me.
Well, of course, in the video, the boys were doing that. Woo!
Yeah.
And then Chrissie would come in, middle of the road. Great song. They play this in America forever. And it makes sense that we know it because it went number 2 on mainstream rock, Jackson. 19 on the Billboard charts. In fact, it even got on like the dance club charts, got up to 43. And the Canadians love Chrissie because Ohio's not that far from Canada.
It's almost Canada.
She got to number 12. However, the UK, where they're from, number 81.
Okay.
Now, there was no official video. I think if you go on YouTube, you'll see videos of her being on like Top of the Pops and shows like that doing the song. But I don't think that
there was no official video for it.
Made an official one because, I mean, obviously they made one for Chain Gang, but that was a year and a half before. I don't know. And this was the second single in the U.S., but it wasn't released in the U.K. till February after the album came out. I don't know. I don't know what the thinking was. I mean, look, you couldn't just make videos for everything, I guess, back then. But this is a killer song. It's a kick-ass rock song.
Yeah, I don't know why it didn't catch on in Britain. Could be that maybe this wasn't the flavor of the day there. This was more built for an American audience, kind of the straight ahead rocking. There's a couple of different, they go all over the map here with genres on this deal. And there are some on here that sound more like what was happening in Britain at the time.
Well, yeah, and I think she was really tuned into it, and the whole band was. So, yeah, she's more the kind of the English singer. But, I mean, by 84, you've had the rise of Duran Duran. You've had the new romantics like the Spandos and the
Right.
Don't You Want Me? Like, they played the hell out of that, you know. There's a lot of stuff that she had to compete with that was flashy and cute and used a lot of synths versus their kind of pure straight ahead rock. And I got to tell you, the harp that's blown at the end of this thing, is badass.
Yeah, real. And there was no, I mean, I was looking, she does it on stage on live performances. I couldn't see any credits to anybody. So, I mean, I'm going to bet it was her during the recording sessions.
I mean, we have to assume so. No one's, over all the years, no one's ever stepped up and say, no, it was actually me. No one's coming to say, well, that was so-and-so. So I guess it was Chrissie, which is awesome. But in the U.S., it was backed with 2,000 Miles, the Christmas song, because that wasn't released as a single on its own in the U.S. It was released as a single in the U.K. We talked about it on our top 10 rockin' Christmas songs.
Yes. And I forgot it was on this record. I thought it was like a special one-off deal. And then I saw it at the end of this thing. I'm like, yeah, it's just it's a great Christmas song, but it's also a great song on its own.
Yeah. And honestly, if she didn't have the line, it must be Christmas time, you wouldn't necessarily think it was a Christmas song.
Right. Correct.
But anyway, see, in the UK, it was backed with Watching the Clothes because, and I do think that Watching the Clothes was backed on the second, the other single that hit the U.S. We'll talk about that later. But I love this middle of the road burner, great riff. And she's got the great riff, I'm older than, I've got a kid, I'm 33, baby. She was actually 32, I think, when that came out, but still, it makes for a good line. I'm half the man I used to be. I got a kid, I'm 33, baby.
Yeah, and I think that's what really draws me to this record too, is there's a lot of stuff she puts in there about her own life and what she's going through. And, you and I both have children, but it's not the same as being a dad is not the same as being as a mom. And
That's
especially in this game, to think that she kept doing it is impressive to me, because I'm sure everybody was expecting her to go away or take a break or something. And here she is. No, I'm here still doing this.
I know, especially at that time. Now it's like, oh, please, Adele, take 3 years off to raise your kid. Now it's like,
Right.
Chrissie, all right, you either need to quit or you need to be back the next day, or whatever, so. Yeah, it's crazy. But this is a great way to kick off the record. Nice rocker, great harmonica on it, fun, hit in the U.S., not so much in the U.K. All right, but then we get number 2 on the album. It's Back on the Chain Gang, which was released a full 15 months, I guess, before the album comes out. And it was released after Jimmy Scott's death. Now, I don't know about you, but when I heard this song back in the day, I assumed it was a cover because of that ooh,
Okay.
because I'm back in the ooh, it just sounded like something that they would have done back in the day, like in the 50s or the 60s or something like that.
Okay.
And so for whatever reason, I just got in my head, well, that's probably an old song that these folks are reworking, but it's not. It's a Chrissie original. And again, it's not only awesome, it's kind of a classic.
Definitely remember this one. The intro, that picking intro that they do, it almost sounds like a kind of a slide deal, but I don't think it is very iconic with this song. And I never realized that it was Tony Butler from Big Country on the bass. And there was a part in the back of my mind that always thought about him, like, that dude doesn't get the credit he deserves for being a funky bass player. And I think you can really hear him on this track.
You're right. Yeah, you can hear him on this track, and it just works in great with the beautiful guitar run that's in this song. It's like they kind of came together in a big way to make this good. Yeah.
To me, Big Country they were a one-hit wonder in the United States,
right?
But they were huge over in Europe.
That's right.
So interesting to hear him play something else on the radio in the U.S.
Well, and your buddy Howard Stern talked about, because eventually their lead singer did take his own life at a relatively young age. I think he was like 40 or something like that. And your buddy Howard Stern was talking about, like, yeah, I never understood why they weren't bigger in the U.S. I mean, the Big Country song was a big hit. That guy, he was good looking. He was a good singer. He wrote good songs. He figured that, they're going to be a huge thing. And they were in England and in Europe, but here they really didn't get much more past that first record, that first song.
Yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, it's interesting to hear a couple of other people on this one. And I didn't realize this came out earlier than the record as a single. But yeah, I always love this song.
Of you.
And you're not the only one, because it went to number 4, mainstream rock, number 5 on the Billboard Top 100, and 17 in the UK. The Brits got this one. In fact, it was a worldwide hit. It just did well on charts all over the world, and it's the highest charting song that I guess they ever had in the history in US, Okay. So for Chrissie, that's a big deal. But the fact that it was backed with My City Was Gone, which was also a really big hit, at least a radio hit in the US. It's kind of a double A side, if you ask me.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize that either. When I saw that, I'm like, yeah, that's a no-brainer to buy that single.
Yeah, it's something the Beatles would do.
Yeah.
We'll put 2 number 1 songs, one on the A side, one on the B side. Then they realize, oh, you get paid as much for the A side as the B side? All right, let's start stretching these out. We'll give you some crap on the B side.
Couple of live tracks.
Yeah, exactly. The video, though, is Chrissie kind of walking through London, and you see these kind of working stiffs, like guys in suits walking over the bridge, getting ready to go to work. Maybe you see a guy who looks like he's a Jamaican or Rastafarian, coming to do something. And then they walk through this door and they're in a quarry of some kind, like breaking rock, using pickaxes.
Mm-hmm.
Chrissie's not. She's standing on top of him singing away.
Somebody has to supervise.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an interesting, but yeah, it's back on the chain gang. It's like, here we are. We're back at it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we lost our boy Jimmy, but we're back at it. We can't just stop. We're back on the roller coaster again. And you're talking about the powers that be and what they've done to you and what you have to do to get out there and keep a roof over your head. I think it's as poignant as ever.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a theme that runs through this whole record is there's sad themes, but then, you kind of have to look past them and make the best of it. When she's talking about, I found a picture of you. Those were the happiest days of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's over.
Right.
But now we got to get back to it again.
Life resumes. Yeah,
correct.
Life goes on, and we have to kind of keep at it, So,
yeah.
I mean, great song. I mean, that's what I love about Chrissie. Yeah, she can tell you about some stuff that would give you the blues, would make you sad. And then she could sing it in a way that's very heartfelt. But then she's also singing, but that doesn't define me. That's not the end.
Yeah.
Time marches on. Which brings us to the third song, Time the Avenger, which I'd never heard before we did this.
Me either. And wow, was I missing out on this one.
Yeah, it's a pretty fast song with a good groove on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we're into, like, what would you even call this? Is this new wave? Is this punk? I mean, that groove is not anything like you've heard before on this record.
I know it. To me, my note was, this sounds very early 80s UK.
Okay.
The kind of sound we as kids only got through MTV back in the day. And yeah, I mean, obviously, like, Time the Avenger, look, time fucks with all of us, right? And she was starting to get a good feel for that. Yeah, she's 32 with a kid. She's not just, the young girl from Ohio who's trying to make it on the scene in punk England. She's a woman now with a family, and it really kind of jams out, goes long at the end, but there's some really good guitar stuff on the end of this track.
Yeah. And there's some themes in here that are, it kind of sounds like you started out okay and everything everything was great, everything was going your way, and now time has caught up with you, and you it's coming to take its toll now. Something about nobody is permanent, everything is on loan here, even your wife and kids. Like, it's just like, it's that something is catching up with this. It's to me, it's a story about this dude who kind of had it all, and now maybe he played a little fast and loose with the life, and now it's come to collect on him.
Time, hear the bells chime. Over the harbor and the city. Time, one more vodka and wine. To help paralyze that tiny little tick, tick, tick.
Maybe. Is it a song about Ray even? I don't know.
Yeah.
Could
maybe
be in there somewhere. Who knows? Of course, he would have his own hit in 1983. I think it was with Come Dancing.
Right. Yeah.
And, that was kind of a big comeback for him because they, were kind of looked at
they were a 60s band.
Yeah. Okay. It was an 82 song, but it came on their 83 album, State of Confusion. Yeah. And they're bigger in England than they are in the U.S., but it's all good. It's still, anyway, we can't get caught off in the side stuff. We got to stick to the album here.
Straight ahead.
And this is a good one. This is a good tune for the album. By the way, I want to give a shout out to whomever in Vanuatu downloaded a couple dozen of our episodes. We really appreciate that.
Okay.
You know where Vanuatu is, Jackson?
I don't. So if you could clue me into that, it would be fantastic.
The only reason I know this is because I did take a cruise through the South Pacific. And I don't know if we stopped there. I feel like we did, or at least we were scheduled to. And then sometimes bad weather will make it so, okay, you know what? You can't get off right today. It's too dangerous. But yeah, it's in the South Pacific. It's west of Fiji, obviously north of like New Zealand and stuff like that, but it's like northeast. It's an archipelago of about 80 islands, something like that. And I'm sure it's one of our British world travelers or somebody like that. Perhaps an American, but I just thought it was, when I saw that up there, I'm like, well, I know what that is. Are you kidding me? I'm shocked. But
well, thank you to whoever that is. And once we finally get the world tour together, we'll be sure to stop by and say hi.
Exactly. Looking forward to that day.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we move on from Time the Avenger to watching the clothes. Not washing, but watching the clothes. And this does sound older to me. More late 70s and 80s punk than what most of the album is. And I guess I was right about that. It's something that had been around for a while and was apparently about a friend who died, I'm assuming, because of drugs, but who knows?
Yeah, this definitely sounds different. I kind of thought it had more of a 50s vibe to it with those the surfer drums, or maybe the 60s. It's a different deal again. It's a different sound out of this track, and but again, it works. I think it's kind of short, right? It's only like 2 minutes and change, I think. But yeah, it's kind of a song about making it through life also.
Saturday night, everyone's having fun. I'm down the laundromat, trying to get my washing done, like I've done before, time and time again. Watching the clothes go round, another week sees its end. Watching the clothes go round, watching the clothes go round, watching the clothes go round, watching the clothes go round.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And, there's a furious guitar solo. It's not like Eddie Van Halen flashy for the time. It's kind of an old fashioned, I think you're right, 50s, kind of thing, or 60s kind of thing. It's like really good punk or a step above it. You know how I feel. The punks may have had great attitude, but they couldn't fucking play. Like they couldn't play their instruments.
Right.
These guys can. This is not punk. This is definitely a step above.
And there's something in there. I don't think it's a horn, but it sounds like a horn. Somebody's making that so it kind of has a little bit maybe of a big band feel for a second also. Just a different vibe on this song. And that's really what I love about this, is they change up styles so many times.
You're right. It's not like we have our lane and
right.
Like everything sounds like ZZ Top. No, it sounds like it sound like a lot of different stuff.
And that's part of you were talking about punk. That's my problem with punk, is everything is 2, 3, 4. Bam, 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 yeah. And okay, here's another song that sounds just like the last one.
Yeah, exactly.
This is not that.
No, it's not. And it just shows you the depth. I mean, look, again, on your third album, a lot of people are 25 years old or even younger, especially at this time. I don't know if any of the members of the Clash were older than 25 when their third album came out, but Chrissie's 32. She's grown up. And yes, she lost Pete and Jimmy, but what'd she do then? Well, then she got some real pros in, like Robbie and so it's not just like, okay, we went from one snot-nosed kid to another snot-nosed kid. No, we've got professionals with us now.
Yeah.
And this is a big band. This is a platinum-selling band. So, let's make the most of it. And it worked. And EMI supported her, and it paid off. Now, moving along to Show Me. We know this one from the radio.
Yeah.
This was actually, I guess you'd call it the fourth single off the album, even though 2,000 Miles wasn't released in the U.S. as a proper one. So it's kind of the third one in the U.S., the fourth one in the U.K., released in March of 84. Tell me what you think about this one.
I think here we go again. We're switching it up a little bit on this track. I mean, what is this like? Would this be New Romantic? I don't know what this is. Like, I wrote Joe Jackson down. That's what it kind of sounded like to me.
Yeah,
we're changing it up again. The bass is cool on this one, and to me there are some dark themes, but it's an upbeat way of delivering it. It's like, I believe this is about her daughter and kind of trying to see things through her eyes. Like, yes, this sucks, but like, here's somebody who has a chance to make things better, or to see things in a more positive way.
Yeah, it's about a mother loving a new baby and hoping for love in their relationship. Because obviously she's splitting with her father. Okay,
Correct.
that's bad, I guess, and it's tougher on the kid. And where's Daddy? Well, he's not around. He never was. He never wanted to be. But in her situation, it's not like, well, he's just some dude, whatever. It's like, no, he's that guy on the TV right there. He's that guy walking
know him
to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What's that voice? Yeah, that's your father singing. That's gotta be tough. It's like, show me the meaning. I think it's brilliant, first of all, that they named it Show Me instead of Show Me the Meaning of Love.
Okay,
it's just called Show Me. And she never says show me the meaning of love. She says show the meaning of the word. Well, the word's obviously love. And through the middle, she's singing I Want Love, and her voice is spot on. It's fantastic. fantastic. It's powerful. It's vulnerable. It's spot on key. It's got a lot of power to it. It's got a lot of emotion. And I'm with you. I dig the bass on this one. Really good one. It was backed with Fast or Slow, The Law's the Law, which we'll get to later. But honestly, man, I listened to this one a few times and I'm like, this may be the best song she's ever written.
Show me the meaning of the word, 'cause I've heard so much about it. I don't wanna live without it. I don't wanna live without it. Oh, I want love.
Okay. It's definitely, it's got a lot of power to it. It's got a lot of
one of her
meaning.
best ever, without a doubt.
What really strikes me too on all of these, or as you go through this, is her voice is very iconic. Like, as soon as she goes into it, it's Chrissie Hynde, but she can change it around to fit these different styles too, which is pretty interesting.
It's true. And so, and it, again, it hits the US 8 on the rock tracks, 28 on Billboard, does not chart in the UK. What is wrong with you? This song is so good.
And I can't help you on the style, because this kind of sounds like what was hot in the UK at the time. So
yeah,
I don't know.
This is for the time, it's kind of right down the middle.
Yeah.
Now I feel like it's classic, but yeah, at the time it was, it was of the time and was fantastic. I'm shocked that it didn't do better in the UK. 28's not that big a hit. I mean, you'll always take it. And I never knew what album it was off of till we did this. So until we decided to do it, and so I'm like, yes, I love this song. And yeah, and going back on it, I think it's underrated. I mean, Brass in Pocket is big, and she had a couple songs later that did really well, obviously, but this song, it may not have been her biggest hit, but I think this may be her at her best.
And when was hold on, they put out a singles disc. I don't remember when that was, but I remember seeing it, and I think that could be part of the problem, is that when you do something like that, you kind of get caught up. The singles album 87 is when that came out. Okay, that could be part of the problem too, is you're just hearing that and you don't realize which album it comes off of, which in this situation is kind of detrimental, because as we've mentioned, this whole album is pretty spectacular. Aha, I see you have a copy of it there.
So you'd have thought I might have gotten out my singles, the Pretenders, the singles.
That kind of is detrimental, because you were saying you didn't know what record that came off of, because you get something like this and then you end up, oh, these are the hits, I'm going to listen to this, but you don't realize where it came from.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got the hits album. Everyone's got a greatest hits album of a lot of bands.
And what did that come out? 87, I think. That's
Good
what I'm
Lord.
seeing here.
Why does it have to be this small? Okay, I'll take your word on it, man, because
Right.
cannot read it. But so yeah, it's all their singles up to a certain point. And of course, Don't Get Me Wrong was a really big hit that came out later.
Yeah.
Stand By You was a big one.
Yeah.
That came out actually, I think, during the age of, what was that shit we hated? Grunge.
Yeah, I think it okay.
Or ish, around that time.
Hi, this is Carl Palmer, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf.
So let's move on. And I guess this would be the flip point if you had the
you're talking about
cassette
side
or
two?
the LP. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you start off with Thumbelina, which is a country rock song.
I've got rockabilly written down here. This is a pretty hard left turn here, because this doesn't sound like anything else, and you think, what are we doing here? But it's great. I love this track.
And rockabilly makes sense. It's a short one, and the solo isn't crazy or over the top or anything like that. I guess it's about a mother and a daughter trekking across the USA, and it sounds like if you listen through to the end, they split from the father. Like he's like sayonara there, daddy-o, and the two of them are kind of off on their own. It's almost like Thelma and Louise, but instead of two friends, it's a mother and daughter kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, that's a tough song to sing, like, but it's also kind of what was going on in her life, right? Like,
right. Yeah, that theme is coming back again with the mother-daughter, and where's the dad? Well, we don't really know.
He's not in the picture right now. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anything about this, how they put this together, but it sounds like they've got the Telecasters out for that country twang there. So I mean, it doesn't go with anything else on the record, but I like it.
little baby, don't you cry.
But it shows you the kind of genre. I mean, Chrissie,
She can
because
do
of her
anything.
voice, she can really
Yeah.
do anything. Yeah, she's not
Correct.
stuck as a punk or new wave or rock or whatever box you want to try to put her in.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds to me if she really wanted to go the country route, she probably could have.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And there's a bonus track here at the end where she kind of goes back to country a little bit also, and it
Oh,
works.
we'll talk about Tequila
Yeah.
because that's better. That's
Yeah.
a better song if you ask me. But she's from Ohio. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying there aren't any country fans in Ohio because there's plenty of them. But
Right.
Ohio is a rock and roll state. There's a reason the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in Ohio. And every band has to tour through Ohio, every rock band. It's just a hardworking middle class rock place. And that's where she's from.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as a segue,
Mm-hmm.
here we go into My City Was Gone.
Mm-hmm.
Because she is from Akron, Ohio, as is our buddy and my roommate after you, Mike.
Ah, yes.
Big Cleveland Indians fan that well, I guess they're something else now. What are they? The Guardians?
Yes.
Okay. Tony Butler's bass
He's back again. Yep.
makes the song.
Mm-hmm.
It is iconic. And apparently it was something he would do sitting around like waiting for practice to start, like waiting for everybody to get there. And Chrissie's like, okay, let's do that.
That will work. Put that in there. Yeah. I mean, that sets the whole thing. That funky bass line. Yeah.
I went back to Ohio, but my city was gone.
Great. You know exactly what it is right away.
Yeah.
It didn't really chart because it is a B-side, but for airplay in America, it's been played a long time. And it's played in the state of Ohio every day, someplace.
They start the day with it.
Absolutely. And it's a great way to start the day, but this also kind of shows her concern about environmentalism and commercialism taking over because she hadn't been to Akron in a long time. She's running around London and trying to get a band together and dating Ray Davies. And I don't know if she went home to have her child or if she went home, she's like, I want to see you, mom and dad, before I have the kid or whatever kind of thing. It's the first time she'd been back in a while. And she just kind of saw, hey, that field I used to play is a mall now, and now there's a big parking lot over here, and now there's this. So it's like my city's gone. Like where I grew up, it's not the same place anymore. I'm like, yeah, well, Chrissie, I mean, yeah, you grew up in the 50s and the 60s. None of the Midwest was as built out as it would later be in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And I say stuff like that all the time. It freaks, it bores the hell out of my wife and daughter, because like, my daughter goes to the same school I did, and when I went there, it was out in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah. Great story, Dad.
And now they're building all this stuff all around. Like, God, they're building all this crazy stuff, and it takes so long to get from here to here. It's like you can't stop progress. You just can't.
Back in my day, we didn't have all. Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
That's great, old timer.
yeah. Should have.
We'll
I think it's
we'll turn on Matlock for you when we get
exactly,
home.
and then you can fall asleep in front of the TV.
Exactly.
But I think it's that theme again coming back to like everybody. I think everybody's had this happen to them before. You lived in a place. You remember it in your head, and you come back and you just say, oh. But I think that's also a metaphor for again her life changing so much. And it's not the same. So you've got two choices. Either you can sit there and cry about it, or you can blaze ahead and see what the rest of it's going to be.
I mean, London's the same way. That Brass and Pocket video they did, I guarantee you they did it on a Sunday. You know why I say that? Because everything was closed on Sundays back in the 70s. Like you couldn't go anywhere but church on Sunday in England. And even today, some stuff is closed where I'm like, really? You're closed just because it's Sunday? That doesn't make sense. It's one of the biggest, most active cities in the world. But back then it was just empty. So you could, even the streets were empty. So it was pretty easy to show the guys driving up. It's like, oh, did you have to block up all the streets? Like, no, it was Sunday. Nobody's there anyway. But what's interesting is your boy Rush Limbaugh used to use it.
Don't even put me in the same conversation with that.
But didn't
person.
Rocky, who was our RA from across the hall, he loved Rush, didn't he? I think he listened to Rush like every night.
Yeah.
And so he would play that. The beginning of it was the Tony Butler's bass line. Now, I don't think Chrissie minded it too much. She's like, well, my mom listens to Rush, or my family does, so I don't really mind. EMI, of course, took action and sued them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they licensed it to him. And then the money that she got from it, she gave to PETA, because Rush is for, everything bad in the world. Deforestation, great, as long as you can make money on it. Build them all where there's a field, great. As long as some white man's making money on it, it's great, And, we're killing animals? Well, we got to better kill them than us, right? So... So just to mess with them, every time she got money because of Rush's show, she gave that straight to PETA. God bless you, Chrissie. And you've out-survived Rush.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
great song. Love it.
Yes.
Double A-side as far as I'm concerned. Now, the next one is a cover, right? The Thin Line Between Love and Hate.
Yes, correct.
Which is basically a story of a guy who takes his wife for granted, and he comes home at 5 a.m, like one time too many. And she's like, oh, you okay, honey? You hungry? You need something? Come here. Let me take care of you. And then by the end, he wakes up in the hospital and he's nearly dead. And it's like, that's hilarious. 83 on Billboard, but 49 in the UK. So it did better in the UK than it did over here, but still didn't get to that top 40 status that you need for everybody to see the video and get into it. I just mentioned it was a cover. The Persuaders did it in 1971. Mm-hmm. And I guess the Poindexter brothers and some other guy had written it, but that hit number 15 on the Billboard chart and was number 1 on the Soul chart.
Back in 71.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And it sounds like the story, of a dude who's taking his wife for granted. I mean, it sounds like something that would have happened to somebody at some point.
They weren't just making it up.
No, it's we heard about my boy Jerome, and this is exactly what happened to him.
It's a thin line between love and hate. It's a thin line, yes it is, between love and hate. Sweetest woman in the world could be the meanest woman in the world if you make her that way. You keep hurting her, she'll keep being quiet. She might be holding something inside that'll really, really hurt you one day.
Yeah, well, so again, we're changing genres here, and I've got to note that her voice does R&B no problem.
Yeah, soul, not a problem at all. Apparently, Paul Carrack was on backing vocals and keys. Little side note for you there. Never seen the video before we did this. And it's them. It looks like they're doing construction in the tube. Like they're building a new line or they're extending something or whatever. And she's singing. She's not playing the guitar. It's not even around her neck. She's just kind of crooning out this song. And I thought that was interesting. You see her not with a guitar on the videos where it's just her singing. Mm-hmm. But this is a performance video, and she doesn't have a guitar. Now, I guess she doesn't play guitar on the song. She's like, why would I play it in the video? But I'm just used to seeing her with a guitar around her neck.
And you mentioned Paul Carrack from, I guess he's most known from the band Ace. How long has this been going on? And then...
Or Mike and the Mechanics. Yeah.
So I think he's a dude that you wouldn't know who he was, but I'd know that voice.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, a guy who probably should be a little more famous than he is.
Yeah, and I feel like when we were seniors, Roger Waters did his big The Wall at Berlin thing.
Okay, yeah.
And Paul Carrack did one of the songs that it was either released as a single or it got a lot of radio play on classic rock. It may have been Hey You.
Okay.
It was one of those. I can't remember which one it was, but it may have been Hey You, and he was all over for that. But yeah, here is Chrissie doing another song, The Thin Line Between Love and Hate, delivering it smoothly. And it is kind of a man story, but she's telling it from the other side kind of thing,
Yeah. I like the line about how the sweetest woman in the world could be the meanest woman in the world if you make her that way.
That's right. She does it really well. And so I'm like, it's not my favorite song on the album. And what was it, the 5th and final UK single?
Yes.
Yeah. with Back with Time, The Avenger. So it didn't really go much of anywhere, I guess. And that's May of 84. So yeah, Back in the Chain Gang was a pretty big hit, but that's 15 months before the album ever comes out. Then in the UK, you got A Good Christmas Song, and that's adorable and everything, but that's really only going to get played for 1 month of the year. Then Middle of the Road in the UK doesn't go anywhere. Hit in the US, not a hit there. The next one, Show Me, comes out in March in the US, not in the UK. And then this is the last single off the album, and it doesn't really go anywhere either. So while she's doing well in the US, it seems like her adopted country isn't treating her that well.
Well, I can't ever figure this out. I don't know. You'd figure that to me, you'd figure the opposite would be the case, because it's a UK act, but it's not at all. I don't know if maybe they thought of her as American.
Yeah.
Because she is. But I mean, like, they didn't adopt her. I don't know. I have no idea how this works.
I don't either. And maybe, Dexy's Midnight Runners had a couple songs out at the time that they liked better. Who knows? I don't know. But let's move on to I Hurt You, which has yet another cool bass line on it.
Yep.
I don't love this song.
Okay.
There's not a lot of melody in the song. And apparently they dubbed 2 lead vocal tracks to show the emotional confusion in the protagonist of the song.
Yes.
I don't love it. I mean,
okay.
Look, I hurt you. Obviously, you're showing some regret or some emotion, like, yeah, I did something that hurt you, and now I can look back and see that I was wrong or that happened. But I don't know. It's just there's not a lot of melody to it, and I don't love it.
Yeah, and I found that same. I just put down, it's like she's singing 2 different parts, and then I found that note about how they actually dubbed the 2 different parts on there for that reason, to show the conflicting emotional pitches here. Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's, we're now at the official release, or the original release, we're at the second to last track.
Right.
So yeah, we're kind of in that. Is this a filler song? We're back to relationship deals with, I hurt you, you hurt me. Yeah.
Ray again? I don't know.
Yeah, I've got to, I hurt you because you hurt me. Is this about Ray Davies? ? Again. So yeah,
probably
not the strongest one on the
No, and then there's some pretty good guitar starts at like the 340 or 342 mark. It's pretty good, but it's to me it's maybe a little too late.
Save it.
Yeah, too little, too late to save it from being a skip. And then, of course, the last song is 2,000 Miles, which made my top 10 rockin' Christmas song list. Did not make yours.
And I think especially since we've included this on this record, I feel like that was a miss on my part, because this is a great song.
It is, and you see her in the video, like she's part of like the Salvation Army, and she's singing this song about being 2,000 miles away from her loved one, which maybe that's what, maybe when she was pregnant with Natalie Rae, she was away from Ray Davies. And so okay, well, I don't know. If he was in England and she was in America, that's more than 2,000 miles. I don't know.
I think you're just rounding it.
Yeah, who cares? Anyway. And apparently it was inspired by Jimmy Scott, or James Honeyman-Scott's death in some way, who died in July of 82. But Robbie McIntosh apparently came up with the opening riff, or the guitar sequence.
Okay.
And so in a re-release that it was like a deluxe re-release kind of thing, Chrissie said he probably deserved co-writing credit on the song.
Did she give him the co-writing credit?
I mean, probably not.
Well, better
once those things are set in stone, until
Yeah.
lawyers get together, they don't change for any reason. Nobody just changes it out of the goodness of their heart.
Yeah.
So that just doesn't happen. In the UK, it's certified platinum for digital downloads 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, it went platinum. How many digital downloads have they had since then as digital downloads have skyrocketed?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it hit 15 in the UK of December 83. And it seems to always get back in the chart every December. It's a weird thing in the UK. In the US, once a song's come and gone, that's it. You don't get back in the chart ever. But because the UK has the BBC that controls so much stuff, and there's, requests for songs, like they were saying how they're trying to get the Wham, or really the George Michael song Last Christmas, to number one because it never got to number one. This year we'll get it to number one because every year it goes back in the charts. Well, every year this one goes back in the charts too. So it's to Robbie's chagrin that he does not get half this song, because every December Chrissie gets mailbox money for this one. And of course now, because it was a B-side in the U.S. and DJs will always play Christmas songs around Christmas time, it gets played here all over the country too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Every year it's good it gives some airplay. And yeah, you're right. I don't know why that doesn't work here in the United States. But yeah, once you're off the charts.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, hi there. This is Martin Popoff, scribbler of many, many rock books. You're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
So that's the album. That's the original album that went platinum in the U.S. in 1984. But we mentioned some other songs. Fast or Slow, The Law's the Law was a B-side. And not only did Martin Chambers, the drummer, write it, but he sang lead. Now, it's not a bad song. It doesn't fit with the rest of the album.
Yeah, and after listening to the entire album with just her singing, to have somebody else, it's kind of, whoa. I mean, if this was like maybe the third song, okay, you would have thrown that in there. But yeah, it doesn't fit with the rest of the record. But it is cool to hear somebody else sing.
We always like to hear other singers sing, give it a chance, see what they can do. It's a change of pace. He sounds very English. Most of the time when someone's singing, you can't tell what country they're from. Kind of tell on this one.
Yeah.
Knowing which is your size, just a case of common sense. Fast or slow, the law's the law. It doesn't matter about the truth at all. The evidence before your eyes. Countryman is honest, so you'll never hear the lie.
And the Your Honor refrain is just kind of weird to me. I don't know if it was one that he always wanted to sing lead on, or it's like, okay, I'm going to sing lead on this one until we get Chrissie in. And then it was like, no, we don't need to change this. And we'll just save it as a B-side. I don't know. It's interesting. It doesn't belong on the main album.
Yeah, but I'm glad they put it on there because it was a B-side, so it is cool to hear it. And I'm never going to get my hands on the single, so that is nice that it's on there now on the re-release.
Absolutely. But then there's the song we were talking about, Tequila. Mm-hmm. And this really is a country song, and it's better than Thumbelina, if you ask me.
This is a true country song. This is like, what do they say? Dark lights and thick smoke at the bar here. And this is the classic, I'm alone, so I'm going to have something to help me through the hard times. And that is tequila.
Tequila, yes.
Yeah. Starts off with an acoustic guitar. You have not heard that anywhere on this record.
Yeah, got a little twang in it.
But again, she can sing country.
She really can. Now, I think this is a better effort than Thumbelina. I'm going to guess that they only wanted one country song on the album. Like, you can't do both.
Probably.
You can only have one, pick one. And so she took the one that was more personal about her and her daughter hitting the road and getting out of the situation. Maybe it was too different, while Thumbelina fit better the overall what they were doing on the album.
Could be. Yeah, it's a little more up-tempo than this one, so yeah, maybe they didn't want to kill the momentum.
I drink tequila 'cause I can't have your lips tonight. I don't want to feel you. I don't want to feel bad tonight. You make me suffer, and you just don't know.
Something like that, I bet is the case. But it's a good tune, you know.
Yeah.
And then they had a song called Ramblin' Rob. It was really just a demo written by Robbie McIntosh. No lyrics or vocals on it, but it was part of the, I guess, anniversary or extended re-release edition. But look, those 10 tracks on this album are awesome. And I guess we didn't miss it because we knew the big singles, but
Right.
we never listened to this album, and like everybody gives it really good reviews. Even Robert Christgau, who basically shits all over everything, gave it an A-. So who knows? But I mean, to me, this is at least a 9 out of 10 album. This is a great album to be able to find. And you've got some footholds like, okay, yeah, I know this one and I know this one. Like, oh, would you listen to that? That's really good. It's like, oh, that's a little bit different. Oh, that's interesting. And I feel like we know most of the album before we even hear it.
Right. And I think that's what stuck out to me. And then listening to the rest of the tracks, I'm glad we did, because we definitely had missed out on stuff like Time the Avenger and, even the thin line between love and hate. Like I would have never listened to that record. I mean, I've never to that track without going through this.
I know.
So I think this is definitely something that if you're not familiar with all the songs, you need to be, because I think like us, you could say, oh, no, I know this one. You know, I've heard these songs before. You haven't heard them all.
No, but half of them, if you're from America, that is, half of them you had middle of the road. They play all the time. Back of the Chain Gang, big hit. Show Me, smaller hit, but a beautiful song.
But you know it, yeah.
Yeah. My City Was Gone. You at least know the bass part. And then 2,000 Miles. You ever listen to Rock Radio Christmas? You've heard it. That's half the record.
Yeah.
But there is the other half. And yeah, you should check it out. And Chrissie is underrated. Now, we mentioned later that in 84, she would marry Jim Kerr, lead singer of the Simple Minds, a band that I've always really liked. And I'll tell you, I think they're underrated in the U.S. In the U.S., they are that song from the Breakfast Club, and basically that's it. Whereas they have dozens of hits around the world, not just England and Europe, but all around the world. And maybe we'll do one of their albums one day. Hint, hint. But then, of course, had a daughter with Jim as well, Yasmin, who, when she has her hair like light or blonde, looks just like Jim. When she has it dark, looks like Chrissie. But they lived in Scotland for a while his career was going huge, and hers continued to do well. But eventually they broke up in 1990. She did get married again to a Colombian artist in the late 90s and early 2000s, but that didn't work out. But she's a Londoner. I mean, I think she also has a place in her hometown of Akron, so she can see like family or whatever, but she's an Anglo at this point. She's really an English rocker more than an American rocker. So look, you don't have to start here. You could start with Pretenders' first album. You could go to Pretenders 2. You could start with the greatest hits of the singles or whatever, but I would suggest starting with this one because it's awesome. I mean, from front to back, it's awesome. Lots of genres covered, lots of emotion covered. Her voice is special.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
And great songwriting, great musical accomplishments on this or execution. Yeah, this was really, I don't say diamond in the rough, but I mean, it's a great record. I'm just glad we discovered it and can tell other people about it, because you should definitely be listening to this.
Yeah, kudos to you, Jackson, because when I saw Pretenders, first of the year or late at the end of the year, we always go through, okay, which albums coming out this year, having been anniversaries, which ones do we love, which ones do we want to explore, which ones did we miss, kind of thing. And you put this on there, and I automatically went, yeah, whatever, Pretenders, I'm not that big a fan. I mean, I like them. I don't have anything against them.
Right.
I love Chrissie, always have. I'm like, yeah, I'm not into them that much and whatever. And they're like, try this album. Let's just try it
on this.
And as soon as I listened to it, I'm like, whoa, yes.
Yeah.
We're doing a show today. Now, there was another album that I said, oh, we have to do because of its cultural significance. And I listened to it and I said, no, we're not doing this. Cross it off the list. Yeah. And we're not going to tell you which one it was or why.
That would be unfair.
It would also be politically incorrect.
Well, let's table all that. But I mean, I think this is why I really, or one of the reasons why I really love doing this, because it's something like this. Like, everybody can do Dark Side of the Moon. We did Dark Side of the Moon. We'll do all the Led Zeppelin records. But this is one of those ones where you find it and you just say, hey, wait, this is like like I said, a diamond in the rough and a sleeper hit. it's just a great record. And I'm glad we got a chance to go through it.
Yeah, I mean, and it had all these top 40 U.S. hits and was platinum, yet still it's under the radar.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad that we got to explore it.
Me too.
What a killer record by Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, the Pretenders, who got in 2005. So glad Jackson suggested this one. I didn't know Learning to Crawl that well, and I love it. And now it's part of my playlist. I'm playing it for my family, and they dig it too. It always helps to have a foothold, right? Maybe a couple of footholds, some tunes you know from the radio. And this was already full of them. So to hear the whole album put together is great. But to hear the whole story of how this actually came together and all the tumult that was going on in the world of the Pretenders at the time, it's amazing. It's amazing that the record was made, but it's really amazing how good the record is. And if you weren't familiar with it, I hope this show encourages you to go out and listen to the whole thing, maybe even buy it. You won't be disappointed. And a great postscript to, yes, they are members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Of course, Chrissie wasn't that interested in going. She was living a good life in South America and wasn't really interested in all the corporate nonsense surrounding the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But in deference to her parents, she's like, I've already upset them so many times by not living in America and the way I live my life and my general attitude and everything. So she did go to the ceremony and accept her induction from Neil Young. Most deserved. And I hope she gets in the Songwriters Hall of Fame one day, too, because she deserves that as well. She's amazing. She's a badass. And she's a real rock and roller. Somebody who really gets it, who lives it, and has really done nothing else but rock and roll. We love you, Chrissie. You're the best. So we want to know, folks, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? You have to let us know. You email us. It's uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. You let us know the bands, the albums, the concerts, the DVDs, the rock properties you want to hear us talk about. And please, not only do we need you to download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, but if you're thinking about it, please give us a positive review. It not only means the world to us, but it helps us grow the show and find more rock and rollers like you. We got to give a thank you to Pantheon Podcast for making us part of the family. And we got to give a shout out to our sponsor, rarevinyl.com. And they've got a lot of Pretender stuff, singles, imports, CDs, LPs, all sorts of great stuff. So go to rarevinyl.com, use that code UGLY, and save 10% off your entire order. Next week, we are doing an album that is also celebrating its 40th anniversary and has a bit of a tie to this one. You may have heard a hint in the story somewhere. That might give you somewhere to go. But until then, folks, to all you rockers all around the world, be cool and keep doing what you do to keep rock alive.